welcome to Centerpoint Church. My name is Justin. I'm the next gen pastor here, and I'm so glad that you're here joining us on time, ready to get things going. I want to remind you, if you're new or you're newer with us, you can text CC Welcome to 94,000. It's a really easy way for you to fill out online or virtual nice to meet you card, just for us to be able to get connected a little bit. Or if you want to, you can download our app. If you search Centerpoint Florida and look for our orange logo, you can get all the information there after you download that. There's events, there's groups, there's announcements. Anything you need to know is right there on the app. This week is Thanksgiving, which we love Thanksgiving. We're shooting a video here. Like, what are you guys doing?
Blowing turkeys, come on!
So different kind of turkey bowl than what I was going to talk about. So this Thursday, we're going to have a football game that we call Turkey Bowl on Thanksgiving morning, 9 a.m. here on property, here in Valrico. And it's going to be a great time for people of all ages to come and have fun. It's going to be like students and adults playing football, but you can bring the whole family out, bring a lawn chair. We have plenty of space here just to have a good time. So make sure you join us 9 o'clock on Thursday morning, Thanksgiving morning. Play some football, burn some calories, and then go have a feast. So we're super excited you guys are here. Get ready. We're going to start service in just a minute.
Hey, good morning, Centerpoint. Go ahead and stand with us as we start in worship.
from cover to cover, Scripture is full of moments that show how nothing in this life happens without it first passing through the hands of the Almighty God. Church, Centerpoint, God is big enough, He's authoritative enough, He's powerful enough to carry you through and handle whatever 2020 has in store for us. I just want to let you know this morning, for the next few moments, let's rest in God's sovereignty. Let's lean into His authority. Creation knows the voice that's spoken to the void, the breath that brought the dust to life and sang the stars to form. The darkness fears your voice that drove it back before. And though the night is long, I know your light will drive it back once more. Come on, church. One word from you, things change on your authority. Your word, it's true. Things change on your authority. Oh, my fight is not my own. My fight is not my own. Its hand is in your hand. I worship you because I know all things must bow to your command. We believe it. One word from you, things change on your authority. Your word, it's true. Things change on your authority. One word from you, things change on your authority. Your word, it's true. Things change on your authority. Will heaven not prevail and strongholds not be moved? Will spirits not be silenced and cower at His road? For if my God is for me, then what have I to fear? And I will not deny Him the glory that is His. Heaven will prevail and strongholds will be moved. Will spirits not be silenced and cower at His road? For if my God is for me, then what have I to fear? And I will not deny glory that is His. One word from you, things worship you, Jesus. I raise a hallelujah in the presence of my enemies. I raise a hallelujah louder than the unbelief. You sound good, church. Come on. I raise a hallelujah. My weapon is a melody. I raise a hallelujah. Heaven comes to fight for me.
Oh, I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm, louder and louder. You're gonna hear my praises roar up from the ashes. Hope will arise. Death is defeated. The King is alive.
Come on, if you believe that, church, put your hands up. Come on. I raise a hallelujah with everything inside of me. I raise a hallelujah. I will watch the darkness flee. Come on. I raise a hallelujah in the middle of the mystery. I raise a hallelujah. Fear, you lost your hold on me. So I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar up from the ashes. Hope will arise. Death is defeated. The King is alive. Hey! Come on, you guys know this next part. Shout it out. Sing a little louder.
Sing a little louder.
Sing a little louder.
Sing a little louder.
Oh, sing a little louder.
Sing a little louder.
Sing a little louder.
We're gonna sing a little louder.
Oh, sing a little louder.
In the presence of my enemies.
Sing a little louder.
Oh, louder than the unbelief.
Sing a little louder.
My weapon is a melody.
Sing a little louder.
Heaven comes to fight for me.
Sing a little louder.
In the presence of my
energized after that set. Let's give our worship team some love for that. My name is Grace Hudson. I'm the executive assistant here. Yeah, you guys can go ahead and have a seat. I just have a couple quick things for you guys before we jump back into service. First, if it's your first time joining us, whether online or here in the house, I hope you have felt the most welcome. We have two super easy ways for you guys to get connected here at Centerpoint. One, you can text us CC welcome at 94,000, or two, you can scan the QR code if you're here in the house on the seat in front of you. That's going to bring you to a page with our announcements and give you a chance to fill out our digital connect card. Now, whether you do it through the text or the QR code, that digital connect card, if you fill that out, we actually have a little gift as our way of saying thanks for checking us out. Now, maybe you've already done that because we push that every week, and you're like, okay, now what? I got you covered. Our Next Steps class, okay? If you're wondering what your next step is, it's a Next Steps class. I love our Next Steps class. It's a one-time, one-stop shop, 90-minute class that covers anything you can need. If you have questions, or you want to learn about our history at Centerpoint, or want to learn about all the ways you can get connected, this is the place for you. I love our Next Steps class. Cannot emphasize it enough. You guys need to join that. Sign up for it. It's happening December 6th, 10:30 a.m. right here on campus, and you can sign up through the website or the app. And I just want to thank you so much for your continued generosity throughout this time. We say it every week, when you give, you get to be a part of what's happening here. We just had someone write into our church just thanking us. And this person went on to say that Centerpoint was the first time in their life they have felt truly welcome and accepted anywhere. That they could come with their brokenness and their things that they're unsure about with their questions, and that we have been that for them. And I just love that Centerpoint gets to be that for people. We get to be a safe place for people who have questions or have been through. So you can clap for that, yeah. It brings me so much joy knowing that this is just one example of how many times that we have been that for people, and that only happens because we all give. My husband and I, we give the first 10% of our monthly income every single month, and we do it for two reasons. One, because we love to honor God with our finances, and two, because we get to be a part of stories just like this one that I shared with you. And it's just an incredible way to do that and an easy way to do that. If you want to learn more about giving, you can check out the information on the screen. There's a number that you can text, or you can check out our website and app. And speaking of generosity, let's jump back into Pastor Brian's series, Crazy Like Us.
Within the next year, actually, I'm looking forward to starting the planning process of expanding into West County. Right now, we're pretty well covered in East County, in Hillsborough. And so we really want to start looking at possibly expanding into West County. Right now, what we're looking for also as part of our programming is to help more families, because we are limited with the families that we can help in rotation. But there are families that we get calls from, that we have on the wait list, that we can help with either rehousing or we can help with prevention. We have a bathroom, our main bathroom, that absolutely positively must be remodeled. I have watched that water weekly sit in the bathtub and takes 2 or 3 days to run out, because the piping under the bathtub is the old piping from the original house, and it's all corroded, and so we have a hard time. And when you have 14 people in here, it's kind of hard to wait to take a shower, waiting on the water to run out of the bathtub, or trying to use that one shower that we have.
The needs this year are probably primarily compressors for a refrigerator and freezer that we use a lot for the soup kitchen, because we're always getting food in and sending it out. Other things that help is we are taxed. Even though we're tax exempt with a soup kitchen, you have to go through all these formal things to become tax exempt from your property taxes, where I pay the taxes. So that's a big chunk right there. And then I need your youth program, because I want also your kids to come and spend time. If it's cutting the grass, if it's cutting down banana trees or picking the bananas or putting in the fall garden.
Our biggest dream right now for the upcoming year is that we would be able to extend this second Seafarer Center into an actual location of our own. The funds that we would need to accomplish our goals for 2021 would go to rent, would go to probably build out of a location, but also other things like Bibles and Christian literature that we would use in the ministry. One of our greatest needs is to have people engaged in our ministry and actually working with the seafarers. We have a lot of great stories about a Chinese captain that read the Bible and come to know the Lord, and a young man from Peru that led his whole family to the Lord through our ministry. Those are great stories, but those are my stories. I would like you to come and have your own stories.
In 2021 and beyond, what we're looking for is to offer beacons of hope in our communities, very much like your community, where we may start with a Lighthouse Extreme Kids Club, and that's an after-school kids club that brings the gospel to individuals, and then we are able to get to know the parents and work with the parents in the homes to help them with issues they're struggling with. Maybe it's domestic violence, maybe it's addictions, maybe it's financial, but because we have the relationship and we've earned the trust, we can do that. Another opportunity for the church to be involved with donating in-kind goods to our Brandon location. We need clothing, we need furniture, we need household items, and that's also helping in providing jobs for the interns on our program that come out of residential program.
Increased monthly donors is the greatest desire for the ministry. That's what helps us sustain the work that we do. Also, baby clothes and diapers is a great need. We have a beautiful boutique where our moms and dads can come and shop through our Earn While You Learn program. So funds to purchase those items and also donations of new baby items are always a great need for the ministry. Our desire is for abortion to be unthinkable. And so with your support, we're continuing to create that culture for life and empowering men and women to choose life.
All right, how we doing, Centerpoint? Those of you joining us online, I've said this every week, but as we finish this series, I just want to say it again because as we hear from these partners, this isn't a once-a-year thing. It's all year long. As you give, we're giving money away to these organizations. So many volunteers from our church serve there on a regular basis. So I just want to acknowledge again because I love our church, and we are intentionally focusing a lot of time and energy right now on generosity as we do every year because it's the heart of what we want to be as a church, because it was at the heart of who Jesus was. But give it up one more time for the generosity of our church to give, to volunteer, to serve. A little bit louder because I think it deserves that. So in just a second, I'm going to land the plane on this series. A couple things real quick. Next week, a one-off message, First Things First, is the title. I'm super excited about it. You got to be here next week if you are in town or if you're joining us digitally. No excuse, really. So next week, that's happening. And then beginning of December, I start a brand new series called Why in the World. I'm super excited as we head up to our several 5 or so Christmas Eve services and a ton of stuff planned this year that we can't wait to tell you about over the next 2 weeks. So we'll do that. But December 6th, Why in the World is starting. And again, you've been hearing a lot about generosity. That is the Sunday where we do our special offering Sunday. We do this every year. And if you haven't gotten the Cliff Notes on this campaign is about give, serve, love. We're raising at least $40,000. Last year, you even surpassed that. We're giving every dollar of it away. None of it stays here. All of it goes to our partners around things like food scarcity and housing and mentorship and women's crisis and all of the incredible organizations that we partner with. World Vision, if you're outside of the country or our local area, there is stuff that is going to impact beyond just the Tampa Bay area. So December 6th, a new series, and that's our offering Sunday. If you've not been to our site yet, you got to do that. centerpointfl.org/generosity2020 as we are giving, we're serving, and we're loving. And so there's a bunch of stuff on there, how we want to encourage you to serve your neighbors. That's totally up to you, but we hope you'll take us up on it. Organizations where we'd love for you to go and serve tangibly, maybe with your family, with your kids, and then let's come strong on the 6th to make an incredible impact in our community. Last year, you guys gave away over $60,000. And again, it's not just a once-a-year thing. every month we're giving away to these organizations, and this is kind of a catalyst so we can kind of practice being generous for the rest of the year. So it's a big deal. So every year when we do this, though, I talk about the whole subject of generosity, and specifically this year answering the question of how to be generous, which in some ways seems a little insulting because all of us are like, I got that already. Like, we are generous, I'm kind, I love, I give stuff away. My white elephant gift way exceeds the limit. Like, I'm on it every single year. So it seems weird to say, like, how to be generous. But here's the reality. What we're talking about is not so much about do, it's about be. And there's a difference between I do some things that are generous compared to I am generous. And my life is organized around generosity. Like, here's just the reality. Like, if you live in the United States, if you don't, maybe this is still true of you. The more that we have and the more that we make as Americans, the less that we give away. And so the higher you get, the less goes away. I mean, I made fun of this in week 1, but it is so easy when you're driving like a Pinto with an 8-track, and I'm not talking about in 75, like you had this in 95, anybody? And like, you're just like, God, I surrender it all. And God's like, oh, you can keep it for a little while. Like, you don't really have much to give. And then as you get a little bit more, it's harder to give stuff away. Like, it's easy to give 10 out of 100. As the zeros increase, we start to freak out. And so how do we organize our life around generosity? Here's what we said last week, is that generosity, like truly generous people, it actually supersedes random acts of giving. It actually supersedes cash flow, income, amount, because we think that our generosity is dependent upon those things. But the reality is, you can be generous with very little, and you can be generous with a lot. Amount almost doesn't matter. It has everything to do with, I'm generous because I'm generous. And truly generous people, it supersedes all of those factors that we think need to line up in order for us to be generous. The reality is, generous people they're just generous. They don't need to be inspired. They don't need to be guilted. They don't have to have a video. They have ordered their life. And what I'm going to talk about today is they have a plan. This is so important in terms of how to be generous and live a generous lifestyle. And this is just my thinking, but I think what we're going to talk about is one of the greatest gifts that you could pass on to the next generation. If you're raising little guys right now, this is one of the things that you could hand off to them that I think is so unbelievably important. Now, let me say this one last thing, because I said this last week. It needs to be said, because some of you, like, as soon as the church starts talking about anything related to stuff or money, you're like, oh, crap, and I get that. Because you've had a bad experience, whatever. So here was my kind of invitation last week so that everybody just chills out. A lot of you don't do most of what I say any of the other weeks. So just do that again this week and go your way and get ready for Why in the World December series, okay? So there's your out, all right? And you better not clap for that, but there's your out. Like, you don't do a lot of it anyway. You can just continue that trend with this series. But for those of you who take it seriously, I'm telling you, it has the potential to change your life. It is such a powerful thing. It's why Jesus talks about it so much. And here was actually the promise that you see throughout Scripture. This is my paraphrase, but when you become generous, you will give more, you will save more, just mark it down, and you will consume less. And one of the things that all of us know about ourselves, if we have any self-awareness, is that we have this amazing potential to undermine our own happiness for our future. And that's maybe never more, it's not any more important or true than it is with our finances, that we have the propensity to make decisions that undermine our financial world, undermine our peace, and undermine our own happiness. Jesus actually said this, and this is my paraphrase of Jesus, is that as you give, you will be happier. His words were, blessed are those who give rather than receive. In the Greek, that word literally just means happier. Literally, your life will be better, Jesus says, if you follow how I have designed you to live. And that's not all about you. The more you are full of you, the more you're going to be empty. The more that you empty yourself in every area of your life, the more you're going to be full. Like, I want you to follow me into this, Jesus would say. Now, here's the contrast to what we're going to look at and what Jesus says. But here's the reality for most of us. When you start talking about money, the word that springs to the surface or that is in the back of your mind is the word right here. And I think it's going to be on the graph, or it's like somewhere here if you're watching digitally. Like right there, I think. So the word associated with money is the word at the top of this right here, which is what? Worry. Like, when you start talking about anything related to our stuff or our money, the thing that comes up over and over again is worry. We're worried about stuff. We're worried about, are we going to have enough to pay their tuition? We're worried about, are we going to have enough to retire? Are we going to have enough to purchase whatever? Are you going to have enough to redo your floors? Are you going to have enough for next year? How's it going to look 5 years from now? But over and over and over again, you are concerned about, you are worried about the future in regard to your money and your stuff. And here's what, not to get like too personal, but here's generally our response to that worry that we feel around our money and our stuff. We spend more than we make. And like we're worried about, are we going to have enough? Are we going to have enough for the future? And then we spend 105% of what comes in. We spend more than we make. And then after we spend more than we make, we end up with debt. And here's the crazy thing. Again, we end up with debt in a lot of cases on depreciating assets. So literally, we accumulate debt, and the moment we drive it off or the moment we purchase it, the value goes down and the price goes up. And so we worry, and then we spend more than we make, and then we have debt, and then guess what happens when you have debt? You have no margin. Like there's no margin there. There's no room there. There's no space there whatsoever. And then when you have no margin, guess what you do? You worry. You have anxiety because there's no margin. There's no wiggle room. There's no space. And then when there is no margin and you worry, then we tend to spend more than we make. And then we have debt, and then we have no margin, and then we worry some more. And here's the thing about this. Let me add a couple words. The thing that we worry about is future consumption. And what I'm talking about, and we talked about this a little bit last week, it's all about a mindset. It's all about how you think about your stuff, how you think about your money. But a lot of us worry about future consumption, and then we consume more than we afford. And here's where this comes from. This is the mindset behind it. It's the consumption assumption. Talked about last week, is that you live without ever stating it, and maybe you'd never put it into these words, but you live with the reality or the thought process that everything that comes to me is for me. It's why you are amazed at yourself every time you give anything away, because you're like, how amazing am I that I would give some of my stuff away? Because we live under this idea of if it comes to me, it's for me, which generally means most of it is spent on you. And so we are worried about future consumption. We consume more than we afford. And then we end up with what? Consumer debt. Now, here's what we said last week, and this is a rhetorical question, but how much more would you need to eliminate that? Like, how much more would you need to eliminate that worry about future consumption? How much more would you need to eliminate this thing where you end up with no margin for future consumption? Like, how much more would you need? And here's what we said last week, and I won't recap it, but the reality is that the answer to that question is always a little bit more than you currently have. Because it's really not about a more issue or an amount issue, it's about a management of issue. And so, we worry about future consumption, we consume more than we afford, we have consumer debt, and we have no margin for future consumption. And then guess what we worry about some more? We worry about future consumption. And here's what this comes down to, because again, this is not a money problem. This is a management of problem. And so we spend more than we make, we consume more than we afford, and at the end of the day, the epicenter of the issue is it's a self-control issue. It's not a how much money issue. Here's what's crazy. Like, I remember years ago, me and my wife first getting together, and we ended up at lunch with this couple that was, legit wealthy. I don't know how we ended up there, but we did. We were trying to start a church. We had no money, and so we were sitting down with it. They had millions of dollars, entrepreneurial. They had started several companies, and so we're listening to them. They're way older than us, and they're talking about their life. And I remember, like, midway through the conversation, they started to talk about how they were worried about the future because you never know. You just never know what's going to happen. Somebody gets sick, whatever. And I just remember walking away from the table and us leaving going, if they're worried about money, we have no hope for our future. Are you kidding me? Because it has nothing to do with amount. People making $1 million a year, people making $30,000 a year or minimum wage. It has everything to do with the management of spending more than you make is a self-control issue regardless of how much you have. And debt is always a contentment issue. Because we talked about this, contentment or this desire to acquire, it's an appetite. And appetites can never fully and finally be satisfied. The more you feed them, the more they grow. And the problem with your appetite to acquire is it does not get satisfied when the money runs out. And so debt is a contentment issue, and then you have no margin, which is a discipline issue. And here's the reality. It does not matter if you get more because your habits will go with you. And so if tomorrow somehow miraculously you got a 15% raise, all of the habits that you currently have are going to follow you with more money. You're going to do all of the same things as the zeros increase. And then if you're a Jesus follower, now because if you're not a Jesus follower, you don't have to pay attention to this. You are not obligated to anything Jesus says if you're not following Jesus, but this may help you. But here's the reality for Jesus followers is then we end up back at the top and worry, anxiety around our future. Guess what that is? That is a spiritual issue. Because we've not taken Jesus seriously in these areas. And so my conclusion is just this. If you want to talk about crazy, that is crazy. That's ridiculous. There is a better kind of crazy. And here's what I want to tell you, and I got to move quick. But generous people do not give in to the consumption assumption. And that is that everything that comes to me is for me. Because when you do, you live like an owner. And that's a myth. Come on. Anything that is going to be taken away was never yours to begin with. And at the end of your life, I have to tell you this, you are not hanging on to any of it, which means by definition, you are simply a manager. But when you live with a consumption assumption, you live under the myth of ownership and you live as a consumer. And every time you live as a consumer, you are discontent. And I'm just telling you, the way off of that crazy cycle is to reorder and to reprioritize your financial world. And it's as simple as this, but it's difficult and it's crazy because I'm telling you, nobody does it. You need to reprioritize what is last and you need to make it first. Just mark it down. If you reprioritize what is last and you make it first, and I'll try to make my case, it will begin to be a catalyst for everything else financially. And I'm telling you, it has a direct impact on how you feel, on your fulfillment, and on your peace. And we said this last week. Every single happy person has one thing in common. They have peace. And for some of you, your financial world, not because of how much you have, but because of how you manage it, it has stolen your peace. And so, a couple things. Here's my definition of generosity. So I want to unpack this real quick. I'm not trying to inspire you. I don't have some big whatever, This is just street level because I didn't want to end this series without trying to help you. So I want to unpack this definition, look at a couple verses, tie a bow on this, and then you can go to the next series. Here's my definition of generosity. Are you still with me in the house or online? Not sure. Okay. Here's the definition. This is clunky, but I needed the whole thing to unpack this. Generosity is the predetermined, specified, designated freeing of personal financial assets. I don't expect you to remember that. But that's what it is. And the first part is truly generous people who order their life around this. It's predetermined, which means generosity, like ordering. I'm not talking about random acts of giving. Those are great. That doesn't mean necessarily you're generous. I'm talking about ordering your life. Generous people always have a plan. Now, as soon as I say that, I know you're like, well, I'm not a planner. I don't plan anything. I don't like that's not who I am. I'm not wired that way. Like, look at my Enneagram. Like, I'm just not a plan. My disc profile, whatever it is, I'm not a planner. But here's the reality. You have a plan. Like, you have a plan financially, because if somebody were to follow you around and watch your spending habits and your buying habits and record it all and put it all together and then come to you with it after several weeks or several months, you would look at that and go, oh yeah, that is what I do. Like, that is how I spend money. That is how I buy. That is kind of the rhythm. Like, they would literally be able to sit down and go, you've never identified it, but you actually have a plan. Here's the reality. Everybody has a plan financially. Many of you don't know what your plan is, and it's a bad plan, but all of us have a plan. And here's just my point. When you live under the consumption assumption, just mark it down. You will consume it, you will save if you can, and then you'll give whatever is left over. But when you want to reorder your financial world, you've got to flip that upside down. And for some of you, you have the advantage to have a 401k or your company, they save it for you. But still, even besides that, you don't really have a plan. So you consume it all first, you save some, and then you give whatever is left over. And then we say crazy things like this. If I didn't see it, I wouldn't spend it. What? Yeah, if I didn't see it, I wouldn't spend it. Well, that's not really a good plan. So the reality is, when you live under those assumptions, you give spontaneously, you give sporadically, and you give sparingly. And it's great. We all give at some level. But you don't order your lifestyle around generosity. Generous people, it's predetermined. They have a plan to live their life. in a way that is generous. Second part of it is this: the predetermined, specified, designated. I wanted to put emancipation of personal financial assets, but that was too far. The predetermined, specified meaning this: generosity requires you to decide ahead of time how much. Like what's my plan? And how generous do we want to be? How much do I want to give away? And I would just suggest this: generosity requires a specific amount and a percentage. Or a specific amount, I should say, or a percentage. And here's the thing I would suggest. I think a percentage is better, because the more you make, the more you'll give away. Now, I get it. The whole Pinto example at the beginning, that freaks us out because it's so easy to give when we don't have anything. And the percentages generally are higher. That's why, like, if somebody comes and goes, I mean, this person gave this much, they're so generous. Maybe, you don't really know. Because generosity really depends on, like, whatever that person is at, whatever they're making, the more they give away. And there's people with very little who are extraordinarily generous. And so you have to determine how much, and as zeros get bigger, it freaks us out. But if you live on a percentage, you will be unlike most Americans, which will be the more I make and the more I have, the more I'm going to give away. And for generous people, they will give it before they consume it. And I'm telling you, I'll talk about this in a second. It will begin to reorder and reprioritize your financial world simply by putting normally what is last first, and ultimately you will give a percentage, you will give a priority. I'm going to give it first, and it will be progressive, meaning the more you make, the more God has blessed you, the more that you are going to give away. So generosity, it's predetermined. You got to have a plan. It is specified how much, how often, and then it is designated of the freeing of personal financial assets. Here's my definition. Designated. Generosity requires you to designate ahead of time where it's going to go. Now, here's the thing. Some of you get so like resistant to generosity because you've been burned, and everybody's always asking for something, right? Like everybody always wants something. Everybody's asking for your money everywhere you go. And so like you just get kind of turned off. But listen, when you order your life around this, you never have to feel guilty about saying no, because you've already predetermined and designated your yes. So in your line of like, well, why don't you give so much to whatever? Hey, do you want to add this to give to the whatever? All those are great. But you don't have to feel a tinge of guilt when you begin to order your life around this to go, no, I'm not going to do that. Great cause, no. Thank you for asking, no. Because I've already ordered my life around generosity, and I've already said yes to things, so it makes it easier to say no to other things because my life is already ordered in this direction. So it's not spontaneous. It's not just when I feel it. It's not just because I'm guilted into it. You've already come up with a plan of how to be generous, and you don't ever have to feel guilty. I said this in week 1. No matter how much you have, you should never feel guilty. You should only feel responsible. Jesus said it this way in Matthew 6:21, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And you've heard this before, but I mean, this is so powerful and so true, because wherever your stuff goes, wherever your money goes, just mark it down. Your heart is going to follow it. Your passions are going to follow it. Your emotion at some level is going to follow it. We become emotional about our money. And here's the other really cool thing about what Jesus says is that if you want to redirect your heart, here's one of the ways you do it. You just start to redirect your money. And your passions and your desires will begin to follow it. You can look at it like this. Saving is how you say yes to you. Generosity is how you say yes to what is important to you. And here's the thing. All of us have been in that situation where we're like, man, I feel like this need. I wish I could contribute. I wish I could be more generous to this. I wish I could give. And in some cases, the reason that we can't is simply because we did not plan to. You don't have a plan to be generous around the things that capture your heart the most. And in a lot of cases, it's a self-control issue. It's a discipline issue. It's a debt issue. So here's what I would suggest in terms of, okay, if I want to be generous and order my life around this, how do I determine where I want to send it? And I just give you 2 questions that you give from a grateful heart, a broken heart. And here's the questions. What are you grateful for? What are you broken over? What are you grateful for? What are you broken over? What are you grateful for? What are you broken over? Some of you heard me talk about vision before. Vision in any sector, corporate, ministry, anywhere around the world. You see this in the book of Nehemiah. Vision is always an answer to a perceived problem. Somebody becomes broken over something that's happened. Somebody sees something in the world and goes, somebody needs to change this. And then vision is born out of that, where they go, I want to change this. I want to fix what is broken. I want to help reconcile what has been torn apart. That's in every area of life. Anybody who comes up with a great product in business, at some level, it's an answer to a perceived problem in the marketplace. It's true everywhere. And so when you have a broken heart around something to go, that needs to be changed. That needs to be done. Somebody needs to do something. Somebody needs to help them. That's an indication of where God is leading your life. And you're not all going to be broken around the same things. But what are you grateful for? And what are you broken over? Because at some level, that should lead the way with your generosity. It's why, and you'd expect me to say this, but it's why anybody who loves their local church should be generous to their local church. Anybody, and if you're not at a place where you feel that way, you should find another church. You should find another church. Like, you should find a place where you are passionate about it, of, I want to tear away unnecessary barriers. I want to create an alternative to church as usual. I want to have my kid love the local church and want to continue to be in the local church beyond 18. I want to be a part of something that is the safest place in the world for anybody struggling with anything, whether it's an affair or a porn addiction or mental illness. I want to be a part of a place that's a little more hospital and a little less country club. I want to be a part of something that is known for loving other people in their city, in their community. And it really is not an invitation of get your crap together and come. It's just come with all of your crap, white, black, gay, straight, Republican, Democrat. You've heard us talk about it over and over and over again, but I want to be a part of that, and I want to change my city. I want to change my world, and so if that's captured your imagination and your heart, you should be generous toward it. You should have a plan for it. And this is our hope every time this year, you should look in your community, look at local partners who are making a difference. And then as you answer the question of what breaks your heart, what are you grateful for? As much as possible, you should support those organizations. Like, it's why it was our very concerted effort that we would build our church around what we are doing right now, that we would highlight these partner organizations, and we're nowhere near where we want to be. We want this to build every year. One of my goals is that one day, and I mean this, and come back to this, you think I'm crazy, that we will give away $1 million, where just every dollar goes away. One day we will get to that point. We will. But you should find those local partners, and you should begin to serve. You should give your money toward them, and do it around the areas that break your heart. It's why we work with about 10 partners in our community, because everybody's going to have a different angst, and that's okay. What are you broken over? What are you grateful for? What would happen if the church was known for generosity? Generous people don't feel guilty saying no because they've already said yes. Now, real quick, because you're freaking out right now because I haven't even really gotten to a verse. This is going to be really fast, and I'm going to end this plane, all right? Just trust me. But real quick, Paul, in the New Testament, he started writing these letters to churches that had just gotten started. And he was basically talking about this whole generosity thing, like, hey, here's how you handle this. This is what you need to do to have maximum impact in your community. And he started planting these churches all over the Mediterranean rim. But the church actually got birthed in Jerusalem and then headed out from Jerusalem. But the people who stayed in Jerusalem, who are part of the Jesus movement, they became impoverished. In a lot of cases, they became persecuted. They became marginalized because the Jesus movement was a threat to the religious establishment. And so Paul, as he's writing these letters to the churches to go, hey, here's how you need to be generous. Here's how you need to have maximum impact in your city and your community. He begins to reference Jerusalem to go, hey, guys, those of you who have more than enough, you need to be generous toward our brothers and sisters in Jerusalem because they're being persecuted, they're being marginalized, they're in a very difficult situation. And so as Paul's writing these letters, the other churches around the Mediterranean are like, okay, we're grateful for Jerusalem because it all started there. And our heart breaks for what's happening to those Christians. And so Paul, and that's why I want to share this, 2,000 years ago, in case you think I made all that up, goes, okay, this is the way forward for you as followers of Jesus, as the church. And Paul's like, this is going to have maximum impact. And here these guys are, and they had no idea, standing there when this movement is still fledgling, what God was going to use them to do to change the world. And so he writes to these churches, and here's what he says. I'll go through it real quick. 1 Corinthians 16:1. He's writing to this church in Corinth, and he says this about the collection for the Lord's people, about the whole money thing and giving thing and generosity. Do what I told the Galatian churches, meaning I'm writing to a lot of churches. I'm just copy and pasting. I'm saying the same thing to all of you. And then he says this. Here's how you handle this. And just listen, this is before banking. This is before you could text to give. This is before an app. But he's like, here's how you handle this. On the first day of the week, each one of you should set aside a sum of money, i.e., Paul's like, guys, Jesus followers, nobody else has to do this. But if you're a follower of Jesus, you need to have a plan. Don't wait till the Spirit moves, which is, I shouldn't say it's the dumbest thing. It's the craziest thing. No, the Spirit should move. You're going to take me way out of context. But we love to just latch onto the Spirit moves. Generally in the church, the Spirit moves whenever the building is full. But anyway, like Spirit move, how good the communicator is. Do I feel motivated? No, he's like, just have a plan. Predetermined, specified, designated plan for how you're going to be generous. And then he says this. Okay, so how much? On the first day of the week, each one of you should set aside a sum of money. And then he says this, in keeping with your income. And all the religious people are like, that's not good enough. Because we need like rules, and we need to tell you, we need you to tell us a number. Like when you're ambiguous, that doesn't help. And Jesus is like, no. Through the writings of Paul, as much as you have prospered, or the literal translation, to whatever extent one has prospered. So in essence, what are you grateful for? What are you broken over? Yeah, but we need an amount. I'm not giving you an amount. When you begin to be driven by compassion and order your life around generosity, you won't need an amount. I want you to give to the extent that you have prospered. This is not popular with a lot of pastors, but here's just the truth. The New Testament gives no amount and no percentage prescribed. It is, you are now driven by grace, and when you understand how much God has loved you, and understand that you can trust God in every area of your life, your sexuality, your money, and everything else, you're going to follow Jesus into this. So I want you to give according to how you have been prospered. And then he says this, saving it up, and generally in their culture, like in a hole, so that when I come, no collections will have to be made. Basically, Paul's like, when I get there, I'm not going to have to inspire you. Our production team's not going to put together a video. I'm not going to move into trying to guilt you into anything. I'm not going to have to hype you up with music. When I come, I know that you're going to be generous because you're generous. And you've planned to be generous, and you've specified, and you've designated, and you've ordered your life around this, and you understand what's at stake. And that's what generous people do. That's how generous people, that's how they live. And then when I arrive, verse 3, I'm going to give letters of introduction to the men that you approved. Paul's like, you're not giving this to me. And then I'm going to send them with your gift back to Jerusalem. And the churches did it. In some cases, they gave out of the fact that they had plenty. In some cases, they gave out of the fact that they had very little, but they had more than those in Jerusalem. And here's this little fledgling movement around the Mediterranean rim that began to take off, but it's still a handful of churches. And I wish that I could unpack this for you, but I get too bogged down in history. But their generosity was so extreme that I would make the case it's the single greatest factor for what happened around the 4th century when the Roman Empire was turned upside down by the Jesus movement. The reason it was turned upside down was because of their generosity. And they had no idea in this moment. But their generosity and their willingness to take Paul seriously, it changed the West. It moved the Jesus movement out of the 1st century, and everything began to change. And in fact, they made a massive imprint on the world. Why? Because they took Jesus seriously, and they took the writings of Paul seriously, and they predetermined, we're going to have a plan. They specified how much, how often, pick a percentage, give it first. And then they designated, hey, where are we going to send our money? Where are we going to send our resources? What breaks your heart? What are you grateful for? What breaks your heart? What are you grateful for? Here's the best way that I can summarize this, and we end it with this last week, but it's as simple as this, but it's so difficult. Give, save, live. And I know some of you, that's not a Jesus thing. I mean, in the essence of it's everywhere. It's just kind of common wisdom. But so many of us live according to that. Give, save, live on the rest. Meaning reprioritize what generally is last and move it up first. And I'm just telling you, when you do, everything changes. Because generous people, just mark this down, have an easier time saying no to things that undermine their financial future because they do not live like consumers. Here, last graph real quick that I think is going to be on the screen. Here's what it looks like. They decide to do what few people are willing to do, and they don't give last, they give first. They designate, they decide how much, they decide where, and then they save, and then they live on the rest. Whatever that looks like for you. 10, 10, 80, you got a different plan, but they give first, they save second, they live on the rest, and guess what results from that every single time, regardless of how much you make? Peace. And every happy person, have a conversation with them over coffee. Every truly happy or fulfilled person you've ever met, this is the common denominator. They have peace. And I would argue if they're a Jesus follower, they have peace with God, they have peace with themselves, and they found a way, as much as it's depending on them, to have peace with other people around them. And the reality that we looked at last week is this: when you allow your money to manage you rather than the other way around, you feel out of control. And when you feel out of control in any area of your life, you feel anxiety and worry. And when you feel anxiety and worry, you are not happy. And when you are not happy, you do not have peace. And Jesus says, follow me. I want you to have peace. I want you to live beyond this cultural crazy. And when you live like a manager rather than a consumer, everything changes. Because come on, living like you are owning everything is just not common sense. If it's all going to be taken away, you never really owned it anyway. So why miss the opportunity to give it away and to live differently? And I'm just telling you, and you don't have to believe me. You can go on with your life after today. This is maybe where I get more emails every year than anything else of people going, I took this seriously, and I'm telling you it changed my life. Jesus is smart. And the way off of cultural crazy in regard to your stuff is generosity. And it will, over time, begin to change how you view everything. I don't have time to really talk about this, but early in our marriage, Nicole and I had saved up for something. We had bought this just absolutely dilapidated townhouse that we got a really good deal on. We were trying to start a church. She was a Christian school teacher. We had nothing. And when I say we had nothing, we had nothing. And I always call it sanctified naivety. We were just like, we're going to do this thing, and it's going to work. It'll work. And so we just had that idea, but we had no money. We were trying to make it work. We had no furniture for our place. And so we were saving up money to get something. I think it was a couch or something. And then we started coming across this thing for, I think it was Compassion International, and there was this little kid in Haiti that we wanted to not adopt, but we were going to send money, but we didn't have any money. We didn't have money to furnish our house. But there was this little kid by the name of Frank, because they would pick American names. So it was the cutest Frank from Haiti that I had ever seen in my life. And we're like, okay, we just started to have this wrestle. How can we give money this, as important as it is? My point is not that it wasn't important. But suddenly you start to see everything different. It's either a couch or it's Frank in Haiti. And there's something about Frank in Haiti that they have way more, or they have way less than we do, even though we feel like we don't have a lot at this point in our lives. And it just begins to change how you view your stuff. And it's not that one thing is good or one thing is bad, or that you shouldn't buy a couch, or that you should feel guilty about God's blessing in your life. But my point is, when you begin to live unlike a consumer and begin to order your life around generosity, your stuff will be viewed differently. And in fact, in a lot of cases, you're going to turn your stuff into stories, because you'll realize it's not just about consumption. And everything that comes to me is not for me. I'm a steward. I'm a manager. I'm not an owner. And Jesus says it this way: happier is the person who orders their life around giving rather than receiving. Because I'm telling you, when you live like an owner, you will be empty, and you will always want more. And you will not be satisfied when the money runs out. And Jesus says there's a better way. So as I end this series, I just want to say this. Can you imagine what would happen if every Christian just got this right? Can you imagine what would happen? Because as you do, something happens in your heart. And your heart begins to be motivated to live more responsibly. And I'll just tell you, this is what's going to happen. You will hate debt, because it will keep you from putting your money where your heart is. And something else is going to happen, and that is, if the church got this right, if we as Jesus followers got this right, and wherever you're living and watching me right now, if we got this right, the face and the reputation of the church would change. because it is hard to hate people who are generous toward you. And we would be known for loving other people the way that Jesus has loved us, because one of the most powerful expressions of love is generosity. And I think as you read the New Testament, that's exactly what Jesus had in mind for us as the church. And I'm just going to tell you one more time, I say this a lot, but it's true. This one area, I sit with more couples and more families every year where the epicenter of where things started flying off the rails was their financial world, and now everything is in chaos. If you take Jesus seriously, it has the power to change your family. It has the power to rearrange a relationship. It has the power to change your city. What would happen if the Jesus followers outgave everybody else? And maybe someday, somebody will ask you why. And inevitably somebody will. They'll find out about one of your crazy habits, or the fact that you give money away first, or you're involved in whatever, and you're just going to get why do you do that? And they won't agree with you. They may vote differently than you. They may look differently than you. They may be a skeptic and they don't buy into the whole Jesus thing, but they'll just ask why. And the answer to that question is that we are most like Jesus when we are generous. Because God so loved the world that he gave. So church, if you're not a Jesus follower, you should play and just see what happens. But if you're a Jesus follower, if you're a part of Centerpoint Church locally, globally, let's give, let's serve, let's love, and it'll change other people. But what many of you are not ready for, and what you have not believed maybe until this point, is it will change you. And for some of you who've been trying to chase things and run down peace, and those things can never ultimately bring you that peace and that happiness, Jesus is going, there is a better way, and the very thing that you have been chasing, it's found if you will follow me and you will trust me in this area of your life. So let's give, let's serve, let's love. Would you pray with me online and in the house? Would you stand with me as our worship team comes? Jesus, we thank you so much for who you are. I pray as a church that more than anything, and this is my heart, I want this for people. And so regardless of whether they do anything today or this week or this month or not, I pray that you'd begin to move in their hearts where they'd start to take this seriously. They'd begin to take baby steps to reorder their financial world, and you would use that to change them. And so many in this room who could talk about it better than me or watching online, they understand how powerful a principle this is. And so God, just for a lot of us, move this from our head to our heart and begin to move us to take steps in such a way that it'll just begin to change things. And I pray for us as a church, unapologetically, that we would be known for generosity. I pray as we get to practice over this season, and for this to be a catalytic time to really help our partner organizations around areas that are so significant with food scarcity and many others, that we would give financially on December 6th. We would serve with our time. We would love our neighbors. And I pray increasingly as people hear about and know about Centerpoint, this is the thing that we would be known for. And so God, just move in our hearts. We're asking this and we're praying this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
We're going to close out with a song. Sing along if you know. I carried a burden for too long on my own. I wasn't created to bear it alone. I hear your invitation to let it all go, and I see it now. I'm laying it down, and I know that I need you. I run to the Father, fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I run to the Father again and your Son for redemption, the price for my heart. I don't have the context for that kind of love. I don't understand, I can't comprehend. All I know is I need you. Run to the Father, fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, the reason away. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, and again and again and again and again. Come on, let's sing it together. My heart has been in your sights long before my first breath. Running. Come on now. And I feel it deep in my chest. Your mercy is flowing. You sound good, church. Come on. Just as I am. And I know I need you now. My heart has been in your sights long before my first breath. Running into your arms is running to life from death. And I feel this rush deep in my chest. Your mercy is calling out. Just as I am, you pull me in, and I know I need you now. Run to the Father, fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. I found a surgeon, my soul found a friend. So I run to the Father again and again. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul found a friend. So I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, and again and again and again and again. Oh, and again and again and again and again.
Hey, thanks for joining us this morning. Stick around for the after party. We'll see you next week.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the after party. I'm glad to have you with us. I'm Angela Parker. I am the communications director here at Centerpoint.
And I'm Grace Hudson. I'm the executive assistant here.
We are so glad to have you this morning with us. If it's your first time joining us, this is the after party. It's just a few minutes in which you get to kind of have a conversation with us and get to know us a little bit more on a casual level. So instead of just seeing people faces on a stage, you get to kind of hear us as who we are and get to know us a little bit more. Also, if it's your first time joining us, we would love for you to text CC Welcome to 94,000. This just gives us an opportunity to connect with you. We're going to send you back a link to have have a Connect card that you're going to fill out. And this is just going to give us some basic information so we can get to know you, and we're going to send you a free gift for your trouble. It's just a few questions. We're not going to spam you. We're not going to like show up at your house or do anything weird. We're not going to stalk you. But it just gives us a chance to get to know you a little bit. So be sure to text CC Welcome to 94,000 if this is your first time joining us. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. And I thought it would be fun. I came up with a couple questions because I know you may not know Angela and I as well as you know some other people. So I thought it would be cool. I came up with some Thanksgiving-related questions since we're on the week of Thanksgiving, and we're both going to take turns answering questions just so you can kind of learn a little bit more about us. And I'm going to make you go first. Put you on the spot.
Okay. Well, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. So, yes. It's like all the joy of family and stuff, the good parts of Christmas, but no pressure to buy gifts.
Yes.
So that's the reason why
Love
I really like Thanksgiving. So, all right, it says, are you more a cook, baker, or neither? So I'm a little bit of both.
Oh,
I love to cook.
Of course you are.
I love to bake.
Oh my
I
goodness.
also love to make good cocktails. So those are my
you just
hobbies.
Got the trifecta.
So I like the kitchen.
Okay,
I like
which
to
one are
spend
you
time in
best
there.
at?
Which one am I best at?
Yeah.
Well, the cocktails, but
I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
good.
now your turn.
I feel like I'm bad at all three, so there's that. Okay. Does your family have any Thanksgiving traditions? Yeah, this is really dorky, but my family really loves puzzles. We're like a huge puzzle people. And it's like doing it is fun, but we just like the idea of getting a massive puzzle out, everybody gathering around the table and just like having coffee and just talking. Because, you know, when you do puzzles, you talk. So
Yeah.
my family loves puzzles. Anytime we do huge gatherings, we tell everybody to bring a puzzle. And because we're pretty good at them, not going to brag. But that's definitely my family.
Yeah. I love doing puzzles too. We do them with our family, but the problem is like I have this huge coffee table I usually put it on, and then my husband gets really mad because the puzzle sits there for like a week and he gets tired of looking at it.
Oh
so
my gosh, I
because
love
I'm the
it.
only one that really will be dedicated. The kids will join for like
Come
a few
on,
minutes and then they
yeah.
give it up. So I'm the only one that actually will do it.
Oh my
And
gosh,
so
it's
he's
like
like, this drives me nuts. I'm tired
the
of looking
opposite.
at it.
My family is like so competitive. Like I got the whole edge on this side, so you need to catch up to me. Like we're very serious about it.
That's too
Let's
funny.
go ahead and do one
Do
more.
one more?
Each. Yeah.
All right, let's see. Let's get a good one here. You didn't put anything like crazy embarrassing in
I
here,
thought
right?
about it, but I was like, I don't want to throw her out. And I know I folded these too many times.
All right. Black Friday, Thursday night, yes or no? Okay. I don't like it that they do it because I think it's crazy. I think that like Thanksgiving should be family time, everything else. However, I will say I have actually gone out for like the Midnight Madness ones. Now that they do it at like 7 o'clock or 6
crazy,
o'clock,
yeah.
that drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Back whenever it was like it opened at midnight.
Yes, that was way cooler.
I mean, you're done with all the eating.
Yeah.
Everybody's full. It's like, okay, the guys are half asleep on the couch. So it was like,
Yeah.
the moms and
Oh,
we would all get
100%.
out and go shopping. That was fun. And I did the whole midnight. I stood in line for like 2 hours for a trampoline one year.
Did you get it?
I did.
Well, that's worth it then. Yeah,
So,
that's cool.
It's, that stuff was fine.
Yeah.
But I don't like it now that it's like 4
Super
o'clock. Yeah, I'm not going
that
at
makes
4
no
o'clock on
sense to me.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's fun to go out, like, because I do it with my family. We all load up in the car and hop to place, and so, like, it's still family time. It just looks a little different, but yeah, I agree. We usually don't go until the sun's gone.
Yeah.
Let me power through this last one real quick.
All right, let's see it.
Turkey or ham? All right, I'm going to just tell you straight up, I'm a ham person. Just because, no offense to you guys or whatever, I was like 9 times out of 10, turkey's too dry, and you got to like drench it in gravy for it to be worth eating. So I just rather have a honey glazed ham. That is my jam, if you will.
I always felt the same way until my husband, Brad, is big into smoking and barbecuing.
He would say he deep fries a turkey, and I was like, no!
We like brine it for day, like, and then he like smokes it, long smoking
started
it. No, because we're going to be in Breckenridge this year for
Oh,
Thanksgiving,
that's right.
and so we're not doing Thanksgiving. We're doing enchiladas. We talked with the kids.
Oh my
We're doing
gosh.
Mexican thing because I'm not going to try to do all the stuff
Heck
that
no.
it takes days to
Yeah.
prepare a really good
It's supposed
Thanksgiving
to be
meal.
vacation.
And I'm on vacation, so we're making enchiladas. It's going to
I
be
love
Mexican
that.
Thanksgiving.
I
We're from
love that.
Texas. It's kind of a, we were like, we'll just go back to our roots.
I love that so much. That's really,
Yeah.
really cool.
So, All right, so we're going to talk. That's enough a little bit about us. So hopefully you guys are posting in the live stream itself, like your own Thanksgiving traditions, because we'd love to hear from you. We'd love for you to connect with your other people in the live stream. But we wanted to talk to you a little bit, too, about some of the things that are happening, including we're doing a Gift of Hope toy drive right now, which is really, really cool because whether you are here in the area or you're anywhere around the country, you can actually participate in this. We have an Amazon wish list set up, and so you can shop off of the wish list, and then everything will be shipped directly here to the church, and we're going to get it to Gifted Hope in time for it to be given out to a bunch of really deserving kids. So do you want to kind of talk about, you've actually been to the Gift of Hope experience, and so tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool. So the staff actually every year we help set up for this Gift of Hope like event, and it's so fun. You go there and it's like they turn this giant like auditorium into like a whole full functioning experience for these families. So we help families who otherwise would not have Christmas be able to have a great Christmas experience. They come in, they get to pick out toys for their kids, they get to pick up groceries for their for their Christmas dinners, you know, and it's like all free. We even give them gift wrapping and stuff like that for them to wrap their presents. And so it's just like an incredible experience that we get to help hundreds of families in this community who otherwise would not be able to have Christmas. So that's why we're doing the toy drive. Churches all over the community participate, and everybody's been given like their age range that they give toys for. I can't remember Centerpoint's age range.
We have 0 to 2.
We have
kids 0 to 2, and actually we have a ton of toys from last year, still some of them left over that were the little toys. So we don't necessarily need that. We need 400 toys. I think it's 300 that are in the 25 and up range. So think about those little push walkers or like the little cars they can get in, or those, you got to think about like what a kid would really want, make their eyes light up, that big gift that'll be under the tree. So bouncers, things like that. And then we need 100 toys that are in like the $15 to $25 range. So like the little push car, like the little cars, or the little toys, the shape sorters and things like that. So
that's why we do that, is because that way we like they're so organized and they make sure every age range is accounted for Christmas. So I love that like each church gets assigned their range. So that's why we do that. But it is honestly an amazing organization. They are doing outstanding things, and I love that that's what we do here at Centerpoint. We find church organizations that are doing it right, and we just hop on their train so that way we can make the best impact possible on this community, and it's amazing. So I hope you guys consider donating to that, because it's really, really a great cause.
Yeah, and if you want to donate, you can just go to centerpointfl.org/generosity2020. There's the link there to the Amazon wish list. There's also information about all the different partners, more information about Gift of Hope. So be sure to check it out, and then hop on that Amazon wish list, pick something out for a kid. You're going to make some child's Christmas like magical this year. So
100%.
So help us out with that.
Yeah, and just one last thing before we let you guys go. This Thursday, if you are in the area, we have our annual Turkey Bowl. It's actually right here on campus. We play out in the fields. Bring a couple lawn chairs. You can bring your whole family. We play some football.
There's no bowling. Football.
Sorry, yes,
I always have to explain. People
it's
get
football.
confused.
We're not bowling frozen turkeys like in the video you saw. It's just really fun, though. It's a great way for us to come together and have some fun. So come here 9 a.m.
Yeah, 9 a.m. Bring some lawn chairs. Come out with the whole family. It's going to be a great time.
Yeah, burn the calories before you start eating the turkey. It's perfect.
Yeah.
So
thank you guys so much for tuning in this morning, and we hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Thanks
Happy
so
Thanksgiving.
much.
Bye.
Bye.